If you've ever struggled with breaking a pattern, forming a new one, or maintaining the motivation to keep going, well, then you can relate to a lot of the people that are struggling with letting go of porn. In the second portion of my conversation with Mr. Sathiya Sam, we get into our best strategies and how to be free for good. Coach Drew. Coach Drew here, the coach of choice for Christian men who want to improve their marriages and their lives. And now this topic is relevant because I've been getting some questions from ladies too. They want to know more about this for themselves. So we're going to come back to that, but we're continuing the second portion of my conversation with Mr. Sathiya Sam about how to shake porn for good. We talk about a whole lot of things. It's a longer video than usual, but there's so much good stuff in it. I didn't feel good about cutting any of it out. So stay tuned till the end and be sure to let me know what you think. So, we talked a little bit about journaling.
Yeah.
And Sathiya, let me tell you, if I had my journal down here, I'd read an entry to you or something because there are so many days when I write and I'm grateful for the ability to reflect and be free, literally, of some thought patterns that would hold me and would constrain me to feel a certain way because for the most part our thoughts inform our emotions.
Right.
So when I'm feeling, oh my god, this sucks, like when I go to my journal, I have the awareness, okay, that's not a feeling. I'm feeling weighted down, I'm feeling frustrated. It's a
Yeah.
single word, a compound word at best. But then I realize because I'm feeling that way because I'm telling myself that this sucks.
Right.
So that's that all or nothing thinking again. This is everything. This is everything. My whole life sucks, right? Whereas, no, that's not true. This is just one thing that I'm struggling with, or this is a difficult part of this process that I do not like.
Yeah.
But it is a part of a journey that I want,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk a little bit about what it means to be free.
Yeah. Um, well, my definition of freedom is the power of choice. And the measure of freedom you possess is the measure of power that you have in any single moment. Um, so, I've worked with guys who say, like, I see an attractive girl walking down the street, I can't help but check her out. So that phrase, I can't help but check her out, it communicates a powerlessness. It says, I don't have a choice. And as long as you believe you don't have a choice, you're in bondage.
Mm-hmm.
So the true mark of freedom is always the power of choice. So that to me is what freedom is all about.
That's powerful. That is powerful because I think on some level, some people use that as an excuse, a rationalization, and other people actually use it as a justification because they actually believe it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially being a man, right? We are to be sensually or visually stimulated,
Yeah.
right? Some people might say that's evolution. Some might people say that, that's creation. Whatever it is, we see it, we want it, we desire it. Now, that can be very problematic in relationships
Yeah.
because
Okay.
if your wife is hurt, demeaned, and feels disrespected when you are checking out, you know, the lady who passes by or ogling or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you move past that if you think that I can't do anything different?
Yeah, well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you can't help yourself, then you have no responsibility for what you're doing. And as long as you don't have responsibility for the problem, you have no part in the solution either. Um, I would even scale it back, take the spouse out of the equation. What are the effects of you being powerless, even in those moments, to yourself, to maybe your relationship with God, if you're a Christian, or your spiritual connection, wherever it may be? As long as you don't think you can help yourself, you're actually empowering a belief or a thought pattern that says, I can objectify, I can give into my urges and desires. You're empowering things that basically give you permission to act outside of your true calling, your true identity, and your true worth. And once you introduce a loved one into the matter, a spouse being, of course, the easiest example, now that any decision you make against yourself is also against them. That's what it means to be married to someone. It means that you're one. And so it not only affects them personally, it also affects the connection that you have between them. So everything now becomes amplified by that simple, powerless thought, I can't help myself. So yeah, that's what makes it so damaging.
Right. And you label it as a powerless thought. And it could sound like the thought doesn't have power. But just so we're clear, it's the thought that induces powerlessness.
Yes.
Right. And believe it or not, that is one of the most difficult emotions for anyone to feel. Powerless, a loss of control, whether you're male or you're female. And believe it or not, that can tie into the whole cycle, right? Not only I can't help myself, but feeling that sense of powerlessness and that low, depressing kind of mood,
Yeah.
right? That can cause you to want to kind of move out of that into something else, to feel different, to get the adrenaline flowing and pumping and all those kinds of things. It's that kind of dynamic that we don't realize that starts with a simple thought.
Yeah.
Simple thought.
Yeah.
And I know that I talk a lot about relationships because what we do as individuals informs every relationship we have. And I remember there was a situation with a son who became aware that his father was using pornography and how that impacted the relationship.
Wow. Yeah.
And whether and I remember another story, because in that situation the son did talk to the dad about it, and they were able to kind of process, okay, right, that's the art of a genuine apology. I see how my actions have impacted you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that generational pattern was, they were able to kind of break free of that. Wasn't easy, but they were able to break free of that. But the awareness that my decisions, my choices, that one of the lies that we tend to believe is that this isn't hurting anybody.
Yeah.
This isn't going to happen. This is just me. This is just my thing.
Yes.
That's not, we're relational, we're interconnected. It is not just your thing. And on a global level, let's talk about that. And my intention here is not to shame people, to say that they are supporting trafficking and the drug trade and all these kinds of things. But reality is, when there is a market for that, we are supporting it. Even though you're not paying for it, you're contributing to it. And so sometimes I think, again, that whole idea of powerlessness, we think that one person doesn't really matter, but the truth is every person matters. Not just when you choose to support an industry like that, but when you are not being the ultimate best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Your purpose to give, to help, to change the world isn't being lived out.
That's it. Yeah, it's like kind of like putting a lid on yourself, right, and your capacity. And I think sometimes we just forget that actually it sounds a little bit funny, but even when you're watching pornography, that's a person on the screen as well. It's one of the weird things about porn is it, in some ways, it dehumanizes the experience. For some reason, because it's on a screen, we're able to reduce the human element when really it's all humans. It's the wiring, the fundamental wiring we have for connection that drives us to some of these places in the first place. And I think when we lose sight of that, it's easy. That's when we start to binge, and when it becomes really addictive, because we forget these are humans we're talking about. And so we wind up treating a human on the screen differently than we would ever treat a human if they were standing right beside us. And I think you're right. Bringing that back into light can be really helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you talk a little bit about that's a human, and my mind, the way my brain works, is devil's advocate all the time. And I hear the arguments of different people, that, well, that person, they're happy, they're making a choice. They're choosing to be a porn star, or they're choosing to be, a prostitute, or they're choosing to, engage in, random sexual encounters and have people film them.
Yeah.
And on some level, like I said in the last segment that we talked about, everybody makes a choice.
Mm,
However, that is not always true.
that's right. Yeah.
Sometimes people have that choice taken away from them, and sometimes people make choices for other people.
Mm,
And just like I talked a little bit about doing my own kind of sexual autobiography kind of timeline, to say that somebody is making a choice in this moment, I think is unfair to look at the whole timeline of their lives.
yeah.
What situations contributed to them making these choices?
Yeah.
The factors that we don't know about that are important to think about. Was there sexual trauma? Was there abandonment? Was there substance use? Was there mental health? What about the spiritual factors, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are so many things that contribute to people making choices. So I think sometimes that argument is used to deflect from one's personal, again, responsibility and personal opportunity to make choice and to see people as humans.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're walking down the street and you saw somebody who was homeless and who was asking for money, the choices that person made that led them to being homeless doesn't deny the power that I carry to help them do something about their situation. It regardless of how they got there, if I have change in my pocket, I can still give it. You know what I mean? I can still help.
Mhm.
And so I think it doesn't matter how somebody arrived where they are. That shouldn't dictate how we treat people. I think that should be completely separate. I treat people out of my own value system, not out of theirs. So yeah, I think you're right. I think you're really right.
And we also have these interesting double standards, right?
Yeah.
I am my mother's son, and I am the older brother to two sisters.
Oh boy, that is a recipe for all kinds of interesting.
It is, and it's a blessing on a number of levels. And I think when we appreciate people as sisters and brothers, it's a lot harder to objectify people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because would you want that to be your sister's experience?
Yeah.
Would you want that to be your mother's experience?
Yeah.
If your mother made that choice, would you be okay with that? Would you be like, okay, it's your choice,
Yeah.
right? So I think, again, that introspection, that ability to step back and look at yourself, look at your beliefs, look at your choices, it's important because it impacts relationships.
Yeah.
So I know we talked a little bit about journaling the last time and how that can be helpful, but I want to talk a little bit about motivation, right? Let's say you do come to this point where you're like, okay, I do want to change. I do want to take charge of my own life and my own actions. How can I motivate myself to keep going down this road of healing and freedom?
Yeah. Well, motivation is really always defined by one simple word, and that is why. It is the why behind everything. And so I always tell people if you want to get free for the sake of getting free, you'll probably never get free.
Mm,
Um, because it's not actually a deep enough motivation. And in the moments when things get hard, when you hit an obstacle, when maybe you fall a little bit off the track, the why is the thing that should recalibrate you. And if you don't have a compelling reason to get free, something a really deep seated motive, yeah, you're gonna drift. You'll drift back and forth. But when you hit something difficult, you're much less likely to persevere. And furthermore, the why determines how you measure success. If my goal is just to be free, if that's the why, then if I go a month of being free, then I'm successful, because the reason I did it was to get free. But if the reason I'm in a program, or the reason I'm pursuing this is so that I can actually feel good about myself in the mornings, or so that I can overcome this nagging feeling of rejection, or if it's so that I can actually go make a difference in people's lives, the way I measure success is now different. It's good that I went a month without watching porn, but am I impacting people's lives? Am I able to respond appropriately when I feel rejected? Those become the ways we measure success. So your motivation is everything. And it doesn't have to be monumental. It actually just has to be meaningful. That's what really makes a valuable motive, or a valuable why.
Mm.
I forget when this was, probably a couple months back. And I was hanging out with my fiance at the time. We just got married recently. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, super exciting. And we were talking. I'm a creature of habit. So I have a routine. I'm up at 6 in the morning. I spend about an hour just alone doing journaling. I read through the scriptures. I meditate. I just do things that really help me get focused for the day. And then I always do a workout, usually from 7 to 7:30. Just something quick, but it's exercise nonetheless. And there was one day that, my fiance and I were up super late, and I was saying, oh man, I have to get up so early. And, we were having these conversations. She was like, well, why do you have to get up so early? And I'm like, well, because, I want to spend my time alone, and then I want to work out. And she had asked me, why is working out so important to you? And I've recently ruptured my ACL as well, so I've had to alter how I kind of work out and whatever. And she just couldn't understand why I was still working out the way I was, despite everything that happened. And without even thinking about it, I said grandkids, and she was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I want to be able to play with my grandkids. Like that's an important thing to me. And I know that if I have the pattern or the habit of working out now and exercising, it's going to last me through my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and eventually my 60s and 70s, wherever it is that I start to have grandkids. But I have that in mind right now, and that's a huge motivation for me. And obviously, a lot of other things have to go right for me to be alive to see my grandkids. But it doesn't matter. The motivation is so deep seated. And I think when you have those kinds of whys in place, it really helps you stay on the track to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's getting free of porn, trying to be healthy, trying to build a 6-figure business or 7-figure business, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about the whys and motivation, and I help people identify their core values, and often that's life changing for a lot of people. Because, for example, um, the same unknown why can be very difficult, can promote like internal conflict for you, but it can also give you guidance and direction about how to move forward in a particular way. Um, for me, my core values include learning, growing, authenticity, integrity, and compassion.
Wow.
And sometimes my core values can cause me to have internal conflict, um, or conflict with other people.
Mm.
For example, even why we're doing this. Like, I have a desire to be compassionate. It's natural for me.
Yeah.
I will naturally bend over backwards because I live to be compassionate. That's just part of my drive.
Yeah.
However, that can be part of my downfall as well,
Mm.
because I could be so compassionate for others that I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And, to then, if I'm fatigued, then in comes those thoughts. I'm less able to manage them, right? If I'm fatigued, I'm not able to, work as effectively. I'm not able to care for my family, love my wife as much as I as I'm purposed to, as much as I'm gifted to. So it's
Yeah.
important to understand our whys, whether they're the grandkids or their core values, and to be intentional about employing them
Mm.
on a regular basis, day to day, like routine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about routine for a moment because I think that plays a big role in our freedom. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's huge. To me, the greatest value of routine is safety. And there's a couple things in, like, if routine's over here and safety's over here, I would say having a routine makes things predictable. It allows you to really focus, and it occupies, like, indecision occupies so much energy. So I think when you have routines and rhythms that are just built into your life, it frees up so much of your mental and emotional capacity to do other things that are more meaningful. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a creature of habit, so I can get on my routine soapbox for days. I think it's very, very helpful. Yeah.
Routines. Yeah, it's interesting because we can develop routines and even rituals and not even be aware.
Yes. Yeah, that's also true, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think as we work towards um, committing to a journey of healing and freedom, the idea of routine for some people might sound uninteresting. It might sound limiting. It
Hmm.
might sound, on some level, and this is one of my own experiences, um, although it's the wise thing to do, I don't like to be told what to do. I really don't like to be told what to do. So on some level, when I was putting boundaries in my own life to create that routine, to create that safety, there was a part of me that was so disappointed with myself to say,
Hmm.
like, why do you need boundaries? Why do you have to have these limitations? Right? Again, it's that idea that if you were really whatever, or if you were really, then you wouldn't need it. But
Yeah.
wisdom is so humbling. Wisdom is humbling. Like, I've learned that as a human being, and all the people that I've worked with, that's one of the reasons why judgment doesn't, I don't judge people. I won't say that I'm perfect, but I rarely ever judge people. I rarely ever struggle with judgment because
Amazing.
I know how human I am. And I believe any human being is susceptible to do anything given the right circumstances, the right pressure, the right motivation. So I am by no means better than or above anybody or beneath anybody. We're all on the same level.
Hmm.
And I think when we really appreciate the beauty of wisdom to have boundaries and routines, yes, it is humbling, but it is so beneficial. It is so beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you, like, to me, I would say the humility piece is one of the most important aspects of anybody's journey, no matter where you are in life. I think that humility really, it's what gives us the opportunity to grow in a really safe and healthy manner. And I think the people who miss out the most in life are the people who aren't willing to humble themselves. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
And that's one of, again, that's another core value in the art of a genuine apology. Like, you cannot even begin to take that journey of acknowledging where you've gone wrong or really valuing someone else's pain when
Mm.
there's an absence of humility. And a lot of people think humility and humiliation are the same thing. They're very, very different.
Yeah,
Very,
right.
very different. And a lot of us come from experiences where we've been humiliated when
Mm.
we've done something wrong, whether it was a mistake or an unwise choice. There was that humiliation and that shame attached, you know. Um, and well, let's talk about it real quick.
Yeah.
How do you help people to deal with shame?
Oh, wow. Great question. Um, I think I think you first have to really articulate the shame itself. Um, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we probably make in our culture today, because vulnerability is now a mainstream message. And so everybody's big on being vulnerable. And so it's becoming more common practice, at least certainly with people my age, to say, I struggle with this and I struggle with that. And people are becoming a lot more open, which is phenomenal. Like that's, I think, really incredible. Um, but and one of the things people believe is, if I confess, if I tell people about what's going on, the shame of it should break. And that is partially true. There is something very liberating about being known, in regards to something, personal and internal. But the full extent of shame will go beyond that. It will never be just enough to tell somebody else what's going on. The shame of it usually, in some way, shame is weighing down on how you view yourself. And you have to be able to really articulate the connection between the two. Once you do, then you can come up with the right tools or the right angles to go about and kind of disconnect those ties between identity and shame. So I would say you have to start by identifying where is shame really playing a role, and then you can start to work towards the solution. If I'm ashamed because this is actually a very personal example, but struggling with pornography was really shameful for me because I'm a pastor's kid. And so pastors' kids are supposed to be perfect. We all know that.
Right.
And so if I have a problem, and that not just it doesn't reflect poorly just on me, but it reflects poorly on my dad as the pastor and my mom as the pastor's wife and the family. And so there was all these layers that were causing me to feel shame. So even though it was great to tell somebody that I was struggling, I still had some other much deeper issues that I needed to deal with that I was feeling ashamed about. So anyways, I know we're kind of going in circles almost coming back to this identity piece, but I really think it's integral in the shame discussion. You really do have to articulate, why is this such a shameful thing? And it is not the same from one person to the next. Most people struggle with shame, but the reasons why they struggle with shame is unique to the individual.
I think that's so powerful. I think, and I agree 100%. So there's two parts to this whole shame process. We talked a little bit about it before. We are relational. We're designed to be in relationship with people. And I think there's something about being naked and unashamed, being accepted with your flaws and all your stuff, right? There is something that happens when we can really bear whatever it is in a safe community. And that's part of the experience. But what I'm hearing you say is the other part of the experience is really understanding your unique experience of what that means to you, how your identity is tied to and informed by shame. What does it mean to you that you've been here, done that, experienced this, struggle with that? So it comes back to that identity. So there's the community, then there is the individual, and both parts require that process and working through.
That's it. And I'm gonna play advocate a little bit now this time, and come from a different angle, which is somewhere mixed in between all the stuff we're talking about is this concept of transparency, and that idea of letting people in. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they think that transparency means vomiting all the bad stuff that's going on in your life, the things you're feeling, the things you're struggling with, when actually transparency really is about just being authentic, one of your core values. And that means that when someone can see through, when you really are transparent, it means they see all the bad and all the good. We had I'm part of a songwriters group. I do some music stuff on the side as well. And one of the challenges for the songwriters was to go and write an authentic, transparent song for the week. And they come back the next week and they share their song. And so, everyone's going around and they're just sharing the song they wrote. And these guys are writing great stuff, and really articulating some of the stuff that's going on in their heart. Because songwriting is really a great outlet, the same way that, journaling and some of these other tools are really useful for us to just get what's going on inside out. And we came to one guy, and he just was like, I actually had a really good week, so I just didn't know how to write an authentic song. And I couldn't believe it. And he was dead serious, and I was like, no, you missed the point. Like, you should have wrote the happiest, most joy-filled song this week, because that's what being transparent is. It's just being honest about what's going on inside. And it's equal parts the difficult things where you are feeling shame, but it has to be the other parts where things are going well, the things that are worth celebrating. Because if shame becomes the focus, we actually miss the opportunity to reestablish our true identity, which is all the good things anyway. Shame is a false identity. It's a counterfeit, and it's predicated on lies about who we really are.
Right.
And if your authenticity only emphasizes the one area, you actually lose the hope from all of it. You lose any opportunity you could have to be fully restored as the person that you were created to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just an important part to acknowledge in this shame transparency discussion. You do need to be honest about what's difficult and all the lies, but similarly, it's unto a deeper means, which is that you actually shine, that we actually start to identify the things that are good about you, so you can start believing those and acting out of them. So
Yeah, I think I love it. I love this conversation. I love you. I love talking to you. Um, I love what you're about, Sathiya. And it's interesting that as you talked about that whole, well, I'll put it this way. I think we can become so consumed with the things that we do or the thoughts that we have that we don't want to have, that they take up all the space and they stop us from seeing, like you're saying, who we really are. They stop us from seeing the wonder that is kind of resident in us as well. It becomes the thing to fix.
yeah,
And people often ask, why do we always focus on the thing that's wrong? And my sense is, put it this way, I think we grow up in environments where, generally speaking, our parents want the best for us. So they see areas for us to grow and improve, and that's what they focus on, right? There's not enough attention paid to what we're doing well. The positive is not used as a motivation. There's not that affirmation about who you are. It's more so, don't do this, don't do that. And I think that's part of almost everyone's culture,
yeah,
that what you focus on what's not going wrong. So we are problem saturated instead of solution focused.
yeah,
And I think it's important to be aware, not to dilute the cost of our choices, the unwise, unhealthy choices, but not to lose sight of the value of who you are. Like, you are a valuable person, no matter what you've done, no matter where you've been. That does not decrease your value or your worth. And I
yeah,
think that is such an important message that I would love everyone to hear, because when we don't live from a place of worth and value, saying that I have something to offer the world, I have something to offer my wife, I have something to offer my children, when we stop seeing that, we stop seeing ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, and it's a pretty scary place when you stop seeing yourself, because you're going to become something you're not, and you're going to act out of a person that you're never made to be, and that's a scary place. That's usually where most bad decisions stem from. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And we talked about this in a couple videos back, especially in the month of September, around suicidality and that struggle. And I think there's a strong correlation, if not between pornography and suicidality, about just hopelessness and
mm,
shame and that sense of defeat as a result of losing sight or never actually having seen your true value and your true worth.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I mean, suicide. We could talk about that for a really long time too, Andrew. I have a few personal experiences losing loved ones to suicide, but I mean, I think it's evident that these two kind of subjects are so linked. And I would add another portion in there that I see often, which is self-hatred. And it's this self-hatred that I think pornography really can spur on, because it's kind of a pornography is like it's counterfeit satisfaction, and it gives you the illusion of feeling satisfied, of feeling complete as a person. But anyone who's struggled with it knows that feeling afterwards is the complete opposite. It's an emptiness, and you end up feeling way worse about yourself than you did when you first started out. And once that starts to cycle and starts to accumulate, that can lead you to some really destructive places, suicide included.
And I know you and I are on the same page on many things. Maybe one day we'll find something to disagree about. But I'm very curious. What is it that you do to affirm your true identity, like on a daily basis? What do you do?
Yeah, I've done different things over the years. I've been really big on affirmations for a fairly long time, and I think I still have a couple core affirmations. One thing I try to speak over myself every day is that I am enough, because that example you gave earlier about growing up, where the focus is more on what you didn't do or what you could have done better. That was me through and through, and I don't know if that was it certainly was at home, the education system. I was quite academically driven, so I grew up kind of believing like I have to be better. I'm not enough, and unless it's perfect, it's not enough. That sort of thing. So affirmations have been a huge one. That being an example. I am, and this is not going to be applicable to everybody, but I have a really strong value for hearing God's voice in my life. I do believe that God speaks, and I believe that His voice is essential for us to really become everything we're meant to be, both internally and externally. And so I actually have a collection of what I call prophetic words, and these are words from other people who have had a sense about what God's been saying about me personally, my life, some of the callings on my life. I have a collection. I've been collecting them since I was 20 years old. The document's about 230 pages long, and it's just a collection of words that God has spoken about me, things that He's made me to do, things that He's called me to be. And my practice right now is usually from 6:50 to 7. It's not actually fixed times, but the last 10 minutes of my 1 hour in the morning, I will spend reading through, and sometimes I'll even ask God. Like I said, I do have a value for God speaking, so I would just ask God, where, I'm not going to read through all 230 pages. So I'm asking God, where do I need to go today? What's the thing I need to hear, just to keep my thoughts, my emotions, my being centered and calibrated, so that I can handle the things of the day appropriately. So that's a huge practice for me for really, I think, keeping my worth and my value grounded and just centered. Yeah.
Wow, you sound so disciplined and organized. Have you always been that way?
um, I've been organized, I would say, for probably since I was little. The discipline has evolved over time for sure. But my discipline, I hate it when people reduce me being disciplined to my personality, because it's actually value driven. It is
Mm.
actually because I value myself so much that I'm willing to pay a price to do these things on a regular basis, because I know they'll help me later on.
Mhm.
So yeah, but it's certainly baked into my personality a little bit. I'm not going to deny that part either.
That's awesome. As I'm talking to you, other ideas for important topics and discussions are coming to mind, because a lot of people see me and they're like, wow, this guy has it all together. He's so organized. And no, I have some things together. I have some things right.
Yeah,
But organization is something that requires so much energy and effort and um, discipline, because I like change. I like
yeah,
variety. And that's just a part of who I am. So routine for me is just like, no, I
yeah.
don't want to do it. I get bored. I don't even like to eat the same food. I will get bored. I Unless it's something I really really love, I won't eat it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess the thing that comes to mind for me is just our personality differences and ADHD, for example. Maybe we can come back and talk to the issue of how ADHD informs use of pornography.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge one, and yeah, we should talk about it another time. But I did want to hit on this earlier, because you were talking about what we focus on, right? Like giving the example about, like, when you grow up, if you're in an environment that's focusing on the shortcomings or focusing on where you could get better, that can really affect you, right? Because it's consuming your attention. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that your attention is the gateway to your internal resource.
Mhm.
And the
Say
way
that,
your
say that again.
attention is the gateway to internal resource. And so the resources within you, the way they are allocated and expended, depends on how you manage your attention. And that, again, is actually, it is a kind of conscious, kind of subconscious choice that we make on a regular basis, where we give our attention. But when you can actually really grasp it, when you can really reel that in, it can become very, very powerful. You really start to access parts of you didn't even know existed. And that to me, I'm bringing this up because that to me is it's one of the values of routine. Routine is kind of an ugly word. It sounds so rigid. I would say maybe more rhythm. It's the value of rhythms of life. Is you get into these places where you're actually focused, and the things you're focusing on are the things you want to focus on, and therefore your attention is being devoted to something that you're passionate about, something that means something to you, something that's going to reward you down the road. And as a result, you're getting the best of your internal resources towards that endeavor. So I think attention is a huge one. We should do another segment about that. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, I we're going to open it up and we're going to get into that. When you talked a little bit about attention being the gateway to resources, I want to kind of flesh that out a little bit to make sure that we're on the same page. Um, so it's almost as if the more you, wherever you focus your attention, it kind of opens doors to the wealth of whatever it is that's inside of you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a part of it for sure. That would be like phase two of it. Phase one is like, this is a great example. I don't watch the news. I really don't. I don't watch the news. I don't have any news apps on my phone. I do catch wind of current events, but it's not from my own volition. And the reason for that is because it's not a good use of my own resources. When I watch the news, I get stressed, I get anxious. I start worrying about things that I wouldn't have worried about if they never came to my attention in the first place.
Hmm.
So I think that's the first step where it's like, yeah, actually, the news starts to open up internal resources of mine, my emotions, my attention, my awareness, my whatever, that I could have used on something else. The 10 minutes that I spend at the end of my 1 hour in the morning, if I spend that 10 minutes watching the news, it's going to get something, it's going to pull something different out of me than reading over the prophetic words or reading through some affirmations. So
Right.
that's what I mean. It starts with your attention first. Opening my laptop and opening up the document with the words is giving that my attention is different than giving CNN my attention. And as a result, the resources that come out are different. So that's kind of part one. And then part two is what you said at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a number of different frameworks going through my head, and one of them is what you give your attention to, you give your soul to, and
Yes.
what you give your attention to, you open your soul to.
Yes. That's it. Yeah. That's exactly it.
I get it, and it makes sense. And for all the people watching who are similar to me in that you like change, you like variety, and like you're saying, routine sounds, that word sounds so restrictive. I do like the word rhythm because it speaks to repetition on some level.
Yeah.
What I've found, whether we're talking about my own individual stuff or even when you're thinking about structure in family life, because some people get bored with family life, right?
Yeah.
Structure, I think, is great because there's room for variety within structure. So even as I journal, I don't write the same thing every day,
Right.
right? I don't have to write the same amount every day. So back to, and we'll wrap up with this, the whole affirmation piece. I think it's so amazing that you have like over 200-page resource of valuable affirmation that you can ingest. For me, one of the things that I do, again, I focus on my core values. I think at the end of the day, I think about, did I experience authentic living in my life? Did I show compassion, or, did I learn something today? That makes a beeline focus to something of value for me.
Yes.
Then I affirm and I listen for my true identity. And as a believer, as a child of God, whether I've had a bad day, whether I've had a great day, that doesn't change anything,
That's
right?
it.
I listen for what God is saying to me about me, my worth, my value. And sometimes it's it's hard to reconcile the two. I mean, I can't say that it's been hard lately. It's been years since it's been hard
Yeah.
because over time I've accepted, like, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I am loved.
Mm.
And it's unshakable. When I fail, I can be disappointed, but that doesn't change my identity. It
Yeah.
doesn't change my call. It doesn't change my purpose, you know? So within the structure, that time where I sit at the beginning and end of the day, I do have those patterns of affirmation and reflection. So there is variety, even when you have a wonderful rhythm to life. There can still be variety.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. Tell me, Sathiya, how can people reach you? How can they connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The handle is all the same. It's Sathiya, me, Sam. Emmy are my middle initials. I'm not that into myself, but Sathiya, me, Sam, or my website, sathiyasam.com. And I'd actually be happy if you want to put in the show notes or wherever, Andrew. I'd be happy to put my email as well. If people want to reach out on a more personal level, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Certainly. You are definitely a resource that I recommend 100%. And I'm not sure when this will be out, but we're going to be doing a number of projects together. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And we will definitely have another conversation because there's more to talk about. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for watching. I know we talked about a lot of important things. And if you have outstanding questions, like Sathiya said, you can always reach out to him or you can reach out to me. Our contact information is below this video. So if you thought this video had value to you, I definitely want to hear from you. If there are some questions that you have or tips that you have that you've experienced or that you've heard of, please leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed, why not? Take a minute, subscribe, and be sure to click that bell so you get the notification when I post my next video. And until then, continue to learn, heal, and grow.